Hi, we're
Goldfish.
Goldfish, and you're listening to Recess with Spinelli. Spinelli.
And oh Lord, from the ghetto, you know.
You are tuned in to Recess with Spinelli here on WSPN, Saratoga Springs, New York, Hoxton FM, London, England, the International Radio Festival, and the New York State Music Blog. And today we are here with GOLDFISH, the South African electronic duo now based in San Diego, California, known for the fusion of dance and electric music. Thank you so much again for joining me today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us again, man.
Super stoked to be back in Boston.
So last time I spoke to you was early 2015, and I believe around that time you were in the middle of a couple of U.S. tours, or bouncing around the U.S. quite a bit, and now you're based in the U.S. Was this because of a growing market here, or is this for production value, or some other reason?
All of the above, I reckon.
Yeah.
We're touring here basically every 6 weeks. We were here for 3 weeks, and then there was at one point we were touring on like consecutive weekends, but flying back to Cape Town in the States. And we just decided that was getting a little bit crazy. So we thought we'd come base ourselves here for a while, and we're based in San Diego. It's very similar to Cape Town. And since we've done that, things have gone extra cray.
Weather-wise, San Diego, and like lifestyle-wise, I think it's very similar to Cape Town. Very outdoorsy, surfing, all that kind of stuff. We do kind of make happy-ish music, and so I think being in cool places definitely helps. And I think, we travel so much that it's nice to be somewhere that's awesome when you get home.
Yeah, we come from one of the most beautiful cities in the world, maybe the most beautiful city in the world. So, San Diego was an obvious choice for us. It's just, it's great. Like Dave says, lifestyle-based. We love surfing, outdoor stuff, mountain biking, and it's the perfect kind of contrast to life on the road.
Now, when you found that you were doing the tours in the U.S. on a regular basis, was this because there was a demand for it, or because you really wanted to push to get that exposure into the U.S. and kind of tap into that market?
I think it started out with a bit of the one and moved on to the bit of the other. So we targeted the U.S. to come here and play as many shows as we could, and the demand just grew and grew and grew. And we played bunches of festivals. I mean, we played tons of festivals. I mean, we played Bonnaroo this year, the first sort of EDM stage that they've had there ever. We actually were the first artist on the first stage, which was pretty amazing. Probably one of the best gigs of the year. And that kind of just symbolizes what's been happening with us here. And it's definitely growing our fan base quite nicely. And the new album, it's actually very exciting because we just put our new album out, and it's the first time we've actually put out a new album whilst we've been doing this amount of traveling and touring in the US. So it's kind of exciting from that perspective.
It was not just touring as well. It was obviously moving country. We basically uprooted our entire lives and moved to America, which is takes up a lot of sort of mental real estate for a while. So it took us a little bit longer working on this album. But in hindsight, that was actually an amazing thing because we got to do some great collabs with some US artists and flesh out some of the songs wouldn't have sounded the same if we hadn't let them percolate for a little while. And it's come out great.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 years is quite a long time to have a gap between albums. So I think that's because of that. It's touring, and in 2014, actually, my father passed away, which kind of set me back, creatively quite a lot. I was actually touring in the States when it happened as well. And then obviously the move and it's also been great. San Diego is cool as well because it's just down the drag from LA. Mm-hmm. And LA is such a hotbed of music at the moment. There's so much music coming out of there, and it just attracts so many people that it's really cool to be there and have access to people and just be able to drive up there and go work with some people and
If you heard it all before, here's a sonnet to
Your fifth album, Late Night People, had quite a lot of collaborations on it. I almost feel like every song has some sort of collaboration from a saxophonist to a vocalist or something.
We were lucky to get some of them. I mean, we were huge fans of Soweto Kinch, and he's on the title track, Late Night People. Mm-hmm. Now, he's he's based in Birmingham. He's an amazing saxophonist, but he also is an incredible rapper and freestyler. So we had this track, and we thought of him, and we were like, hey, let's see, maybe we can make it happen. And we sent it over to him, and he came back going, this is awesome, guys, let me try something. And then fast forward about a month, and we were in it was actually January this year, and we were in Nicaragua. We were doing some recording there, and it was actually late in the evening. The rum had come out. It was they have some good local rum there, and we were kind of just checking out what we had done, and And then this email arrived with this is how the music is made these days, via the internet. And this email arrived with all these recordings, and we stuck it in there in the studio and literally had our minds blown at what he had come up with. And it was an interesting moment for us, because it kind of felt like at that moment we felt like we had something, not just that song, but like the whole album. Like it kind of was the first time where, because we work on a lot of tracks and they don't always have top lines yet, or we haven't recorded the vocalist yet, or we've, there's in various stages of repair these songs. And then there was like one moment where something just came in and it was like, wow, this is awesome. We may be doing something good here.
And also that track in particular was quite a risk for us, because it was we hadn't really done anything with rap before, or as jazzy as that in a while. I mean, our sound has evolved, after living in Ibiza for 7 years and, being exposed to that kind of dance sounds and mentality. Even though we started out as jazz musicians, we weren't really like on that end of the scale as much anymore. And that track had gone from being like almost a novelty track for us. Like we were like, yeah, this is going to be a cool album, maybe like the last track on the album, to holy shit, this is like, we need this is track 1 of the album. And that was just the collaboration with Soweto Kinch. We also worked with Ash. She's an incredible vocalist from San Diego, now based in LA. She's done a ton of stuff with acts like Weathen and Lewis Child. And we worked on a track with her that's called No One Has to Know. And also another song that it's not a house-based track, it's not a dance-based track, it's like 90-something BPM. And
87 to be exact.
Oh, there we go, 87 BPM, there we go. Yeah, that was cool. And then we did a collaboration with a young Brazilian producer and DJ, Pontifex Thomas from Sao Paulo. Once again,
his birthday today.
Yeah, it's his birthday today. He's now 20 years old. Wow. He was 19. We were like sitting down in the studio, and I sort of like lean across to his manager, and I'm like, how old is Thomas? He says 19. We're like, what? Yeah, he's insanely talented. We did our track, The Rising Sun, with him and a guest vocalist from Sao Paulo, Gustavo Bertoni. And that one came out really good. Then we did a track with Demi, which is a French, actually just based outside of Paris. Who else do we work with? That's quite a lot of people.
We did a track with a girl from England called Serrano as well, called Hold Your Kite. That came out pretty well as well. The interesting thing with doing so many collaborations is that they have so many different challenges. Each song presents a huge amount of different challenges.
Musical, logistical, creativity. There's different personalities. Sometimes
different management that you have to deal with, and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and there's like so many variables that go into it. It's like a Swiss clock of things, whether it's going to work out or not.
So in a way, you kind of acted like a curator as well of other musicians, bringing them together, taking their perspectives, but still making it into something that's cohesive and has a common thread running through it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, I think that's basically what, in this day and age, producers are, it's kind of this like broad term which covers people who make all the music. I mean, the old days, what you describe was more what an actual producer is, like Quincy Jones was back in the day. So yeah, I mean, maybe we did, but we always are in control of the music, and we wrote most of the music, and we produced all of the music. So it's definitely cool for us to include new personalities and new talents and different kind of people's skill sets into our music in a way to kind of take us into new avenues.
I think this is what definitely stuck out to me with Late Night People, was that it definitely has influences of pop, rock, dance, funk, and like indie as well. But it somehow all works together.
We like all kinds of music. I think the worst thing you can ever do if you're in dance music is only listen to dance music. And a lot of artists, people we work with, you can notice if they're actually sort of broadening their horizons or not, and you can hear it in their music. And we just have very broad and diverse tastes. But like you say, we try and wrap it up in a way that's still got the GOLDFISH DNA the whole way through it. And I think we're really proud of how this came out. It's our 5th album. Normally, like, the first album's the one everyone goes, oh, that's my favorite album of yours. But we've had a lot of people come back saying this is their favorite so far. So that's a good sign.
Actually, speaking of Goldfish DNA and kind of listening to one genre, working within a music industry, I feel like there is a thread in some of your music videos, especially between the last one that was just released and the one that would remind me of it would be 1 million views,
yes,
of a little bit of conflicting opinions on the music industry from the Goldfish perspective.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's a case of we come from a musician's background, and we've kind of like inveigled our way into this dance music scene in the world, and there's some kind of things that sort of struck us as a bit bizarre, like ghost producing and
DJs and artists that are releasing music as their own when they've actually had nothing to do with it is probably the weirdest thing we've ever heard of. As musicians, I understand, if you're Taylor Swift or something, you might be working with Max Martin on a big hit, and he may have, you might have co-written it with him, or maybe he wrote 80% of the song, but you're the figurehead of the music. You still got to sing it. You still got to perform it. Some of these artists are literally just like buying a song and slapping their name on it, which is just weird. That doesn't seem like a genuine industry.
Well, it's just not, for us, it's just not honest kind of music. We think a lot of the best music in the world was, created in very honest environments, like garages. Like garage bands got together, buddies playing, and suddenly they're the Red Hot Chili Peppers 20 years later, still going, touring the world. And in a similar way, jazz musicians would get together and form alliances and bands and jam sessions and come up with stuff, and also tour the world and do amazing stuff. And it just didn't really make sense to us, this whole like, oh, you can just buy a song, put your name on it, and
buy your likes,
and then be famous, and then
buy your views,
pay for your views, pay for your likes. So where does it actually end? Where does being having some sort of talent start, and just having lots of money and people who know how to tweak the industry? So 1 million views was more aimed at like the press play culture, and this new one is kind of, it's a very unveiled poke at the awards, the DJ awards, which which are such a huge thing, but are so obviously rigged in some ways.
Not necessarily by the organization, but by some of the artists that are sort of using bots, or cruising around at festivals with an iPad and getting everyone to vote for them. It's just weird. It's like a weird beauty pageant. It's kind of strange.
Well, the funny thing is you'll always be able to look at that, at these lists, and go, who on earth is that at number 53?
Never heard of them.
Exactly. There's always a good couple of those, which does kind of make you wonder. But anyway, we just, we like doing animated videos, and you can kind of like, we don't take ourselves too seriously, so we poke fun at things, and we're happy for people to poke fun at us. It's just the way it is.
Where does that genuine factor click in? How do you know you're being genuine to yourself, or what it means to be Goldfish, the Goldfish duo?
That's definitely a hard thing to do a lot, because especially the longer you're in the industry, the more when you start, you just blindly are yourself. And that's why so many artists make some of their best music as their first album or their first track, and then struggle to come back from that, because suddenly everyone else gets involved, and suddenly there's the management, and there's the touring, and there's people hitting you up on SoundCloud and giving you whatever positive or negative feedback, and okay, so we need to have another hit. So you have to try and at all times be a ninja and try and push that all out of the way, all of those vested interests, and try and get back to what you want to do. And people can smell that, I think. They can smell it when you're making something that's genuine and real, and a true reflection of your, yourself and your musical soul. And I think that's why this album has been gratifying for us, is that it feels real. It feels true. I listen to it and I go, that's us.
It's also one of the reasons why we decided to do an album again, because we'd done 4 already, and then it kind of like singles culture has kind of taken over quite a lot, and the whole music industry is basically being ruled by singles being released every 2 weeks or whatever. And I think we realized about like 18 months ago, we were like, okay, we really now need to knuckle down and pull ourselves together and do an album, because creatively you can't do the kind of music that you can do on an album. You can't do that in singles, and you can't tell a story. You can't tell a story with one song, and even an EP being like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 songs, it's kind of difficult as well. Album, you kind of get to go through the moods and just really stretch out in some songs and tighten up in others, and I think that also helps with the whole Goldfish DNA doing albums.
And our fans want that. I think we've got now 5 albums of work. Our fans understand how we work in that way. We're not like one of these single-based artists. So it just seems like necessary for ourselves and the music we want to make, and also for the people who are wanting to listen to it, that we do these albums, because of the 12 tracks that are on the album, we wouldn't have maybe made, or we wouldn't have released some of them, because it would have just been weird if we suddenly released. I mean, if you listen to the album, you'll hear that there's bangers, there's jazzy tracks, there's like tropical tracks, there's deep house tracks, and if we just released the one, people would be like, what are they doing? But as a whole, it makes sense.
So what would you say is the biggest lesson you learned from the last album to this album? Something that made life easier, or maybe even something that you would change for the next one?
I think a big thing was the previous album, we almost took too long to get it to completion. From the time we started working with it, and I know this album also took a long time, but when we really decided like 18 months ago to put the pedal to the metal and get the album out, we kind of did it in a quicker and somehow just having that sort of goal-based sort of purpose to get a song into like a almost finished stage as quickly as possible, because you have your inspiration in like the first 20 minutes and then you spend 2 weeks finishing the song, and like if you can get that closer together, you generally get a better product. Your song, you can capitalize on that good idea and bring it to not 100% finished, but to that point where the song actually completely makes sense structurally, and I found that I think we did that way better this time around, and I think that you can hear in the music that a lot of the songs are kind of more cohesive because of that. Some of the songs in the previous album we took like forever to do, and they start going on a little windy path, and you get bored of them, and you start doubting yourself, and you start reworking things, and you start rehashing something which shouldn't have been, and then you end up going down all sorts of like cul-de-sacs. So I think we did pretty well with this time around. We also made a concerted effort to record the live instruments as perfectly as we could in the recording, as opposed to going afterwards and fixing things and editing things and making it sound perfect afterwards, which I think also added to the vibe of some of the stuff in the album.
Actually, another thing that strikes me with dance music in particular, it applies as well to pop music, is how to maintain a very simple message while communicating a deep idea, if you will.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys find a challenge when you're writing music, is to try and keep it simple, stupid, if you will, while still communicating concepts that are not just for the dance floor?
I think we think about that all the time. It's super important. Like it's like a person who can give a good speech. We always say it's like, I have a dream. Is not, he could have been like, well, I had a long, like a convoluted late night last night, and then I fell asleep, and then I thought about this thing. You have to get it across in a way that's going to grab people, especially with dance music, because it's so it either works or it doesn't. It's an instant thing. It's not necessarily a cerebral like jazz or some forms of indie rock, or where you're sort of listening to what the lyrics are saying. It has to hit you straight away. You got to feel it. You got to believe it. And we spent a lot of time distilling our idea down, especially because we are jazz musicians and we could do so much more. The most important thing you can do is try and figure out how to do less and get that message across as succinctly as possible.
It was kind of interesting. We were at the Amsterdam dance event last week, and we were sitting on a panel that was called the Demolition Panel, and people submitted their demos, and the one concurrent like issue that these young producers were having was like the songs were not consistent from the beginning of the song till the end of the song. A lot of the songs sounded like different songs, and I think that is it seems very simple as a concept, but a lot of people actually don't do that. Young guys, like up and coming producers, and I think that is also like a something that we've harnessed better in like as we've developed as musicians and producers, being able to, really distill the essence of a song and the essence of, and then on a grander scale, being able to distill the essence of Goldfish. And I think that those two kind of factors we did really well in this album, I think. And I think that adds to the cohesiveness of the songs, even though they are kind of varied styles, and that adds to them, the cohesiveness of each song separately and as a whole, as an album.
So as both musicians and producers, what would you say is your duty to the audience?
Obviously, at an event, we want people to have a really good time, and we make positive, uplifting music. We want people to just, there's a lot of bad things in this world, and a lot of people having a hard time in their lives, and when they come and watch music, we want them to forget about it and just escapism, like natural musical escapism. And then, from a listening perspective, I guess, we always want to achieve songs that are listenable, multiple times, not just once, and really kind of let people be able to dive into songs really deep.
We always also say it's sort of like we're working in an industry which is basically, in a lot of ways, like the food industry. There's a lot of fast food and a lot of burgers and fries, and there's nothing wrong with making a really good organic burger and fries, homemade our whole thing is, if you are going to be a music producer or a chef or anything, it's like, you know what your audience or your clientele might want, and you want to connect with them, and you want them to experience it, have a great meal or have a great time at your show. So are you going to give them a shitty burger, or are you going to sneak in some foie gras on there, or whatever it is that they wouldn't necessarily realize what they're eating, but they're like, what was that? That was amazing. And it's kind of the same in music.
Well, before you guys head on stage, is there anything else that you guys would like to add that you think is important for folks to know?
Hit us up on our Instagram, our YouTube, our Facebook. Everything's at Goldfish Live. Go watch our new music video for Talk to Me. That's on all our websites and stuff, so you can check that out. Our new album is called Late Night People, and it's very good.
We actually put together a playlist called Essential Goldfish, and stuck every single song we've ever made on there, and it's 5 hours long, which was quite something.
Well, thanks so much again for speaking to us for a second time, guys.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Great time.
You have been listening to Recess with Spinelli here on WSPN, Saratoga Springs, New York, Hoxton FM, London, England, the International Radio Festival, and the New York State Music Blog. And we have been speaking with the electronic duo from Cape Town, South Africa, but currently residing in San Diego, California. They are Goldfish, and their brand new album, Late Night People, is out and available now.
Yes, sir. I'm talking. You remember that funky time we done